Hello, for this video today I am joined by Alan and Fiona. They are the authors of the book We've Lost My Prostate Mate and Life Goes On. You can find out more about their work in the description box below, but for today's video Alan is going to share with us his injection process for creating his erections. So Alan, when did you have prostate surgery?
Back in February the 2nd, 2011, a few years back. A bad choice because February for us was wedding anniversary, Fiona's birthday and St. Valentine's Day.
Wow.
And we got 1 out of 3, didn't we? Yeah. We got to celebrate our wedding anniversary, which means we had some sex.
Yeah.
Forget everything else after that.
Yes.
It was not a good choice, February. Never mind, we move on.
February every year is a very big month for you then. It is.
It is, yes.
Okay, so now when you want to have sex that includes an erection, is injections the way that you do this as your primary method?
It's primary at the moment. I mean, most men will know about the little blue pill, Viagra, and for most men will get a side effect, so often would be a headache, some bluey vision, a flush in the wrong head. As I say.
Yes, so, I hear that from men.
Yes.
It's gone up here rather than down there.
Downstairs. Yes. So we use them off and on, but I just find I have a really weird reaction to it after. So I tend to use the needle, and that is interesting in itself because once the man loses his prostate, obviously he's short, which some men forget. They're going to be this long. Oh, sorry, they're this short now. And in the early days, because you are so short and using a pad at some point, the eye will get closed up with the penis or Percy, and there's a lot of hairs down below. There's a bit of a jungle down there. So what I say to men is that you need to trim back the hairs. So use a little electric trimmer, gently of course, so there's less chance of you going to the toilet and all of a sudden going to take a leak and the hair's gone across the eye and it goes everywhere, except in the bowl.
Point. And there's the thing, where do we hear that this is the practical day-to-day experience of what you're going through?
That's right.
And that Percy, and I'm sure everybody's going to now comment below going, I've got a Pedro, I've got a Willie. Exactly. So Percy needs a manicure.
Percy needs a manicure.
So that's step one for you.
Step one for two. So I have a little routine. So we work out if we're feeling a bit frisky in the afternoon. Because we both got home at the moment.
We negotiate that.
We negotiate that, of course. So I go into the kitchen, I get out the needle and the Trimix bottle, a little piece of chocolate on the bench to reward myself.
That's a great idea.
Great idea, yes, got to be rewarded. Pull in the certain amount of Trimix that I need, usually the 100 cc's, inject myself, making sure there's no hairs that get in the way, and then a piece of chocolate. I go upstairs and I actually also use the vibrator. So I find once I've injected myself, I'm in bed, I'll use the vibrator around Percy to encourage the erection as well.
Yeah, and for those at home, this particular kind of vibrator is called a WeVibe. It's this curved shape, and it's got a, don't mind me doing this,
that's right.
It's got a flexibility to it.
Flexibility, so that's a great. I found that does enhance the erection as well. So when I'm feeling I'm reasonably full and everything, and I go, I'm ready! So we've got to have some fun to it. And yes, there is more than one way to have sex. I understand that. And every couple will be different. And they do what makes them feel close. But for us, we enjoy being that close with regarding to penetrative sex, of course. And it depends on the day and how we're feeling. And it does bring us closer. We find we just really enjoy it. So for us, it's this. Occasionally, I will take the Viagra. Now, men with Viagra.
Can I clarify, Alan? Do you take the Viagra? You don't take the Viagra with the injection?
Oh, God, no.
You're taking this apart. Very good.
Put the needle down. So for this, you need to take the Viagra on an empty stomach, not with food or alcohol. So you want to make sure your stomach contents a good hour at least, if not more. And no alcohol, no magnesium supplements. That all interferes with the uptake, so you will not get a response. And of course, if you're using Viagra, using the little vibrator is useful to also increase it. It needs a bit more stimulation. What men don't realise that just because you've taken Viagra, you're going to get a full erection. That works for some men, it doesn't work for all men. Everyone is different.
It needs a certain context in order to work, so you've got to do a little bit of work as well for Viagra to do its thing. Can you talk to me a bit more about, so what does the vibrator do for you?
I find it does create some stimulation around the base, but also around the scrotum and up around the perineum. Up around the gland head, on top of Percy. So it does make a difference. It does create that extra stimulation.
Yeah.
And of course, what men don't realise, but maybe they haven't understood the importance of using your brain, your hardwire. So it's important, whatever device you're using, is you think fantasy, your imagination, whether it's your wife or whatever it may be, that helps to stimulate the nerves as well.
Yeah.
And it's important, I think, for men in the early days to start doing that, to start getting the nerves reactivated, because when the early days of the operation, for most men, not everyone, there's nothing happening. You can think all the things you like and infanticise, but nothing seems to get through down below. So it's as if you've got to use Sydney, the brain, Sing Sydney, sorry about that, Sydney.
Sydney and Pedro have to be good friends. Yes. They're close friends in this process.
You've got to get those nerves, and you will, in my experience, the more you do that regularly and using pumps if you need be, you start to get stimulation happening, the nerves get woken up again. They need reawakening. They've gone to sleep, they've been traumatised, they need stimulation. So it's important you work on that one as well.
Absolutely, Alan. Fiona, I'm wondering, while Alan's doing the injection process, I hear from clients in consultations really what they're mourning as well is that loss of the spontaneity. And that you've got to be so intentional with all of this. So what's it like for you, Fiona?
We certainly do miss the spontaneity, but you can't focus on what you've lost. You have to focus on what you still have. And so, to me, there's a theatrical element to our sex now. At least I find it a bit theatrical, because after Alan's done his little whistle, I'm usually downstairs on the computer or something. So I'll come upstairs, get myself ready, get myself undressed, and there's a certain little parade that happens. And then there's lots of intimacy and playful laughter, because I really find that sex is so much more fun when you're sort of semi-jokey about it, when you're making it into a fun thing and teasing and being silly. I really enjoy that. And making up names for things. Like there's a crawl that I like to do up Alan's body, and I call it the Goanna crawl. And there are just wacky things like that. But
I love that. You've created a sort of a new playbook around how intentional things are. Intentional when you're thinking about it, it's sort of the good side of performance. We talk about performance and sex as being something we want to move away from because of anxiety, of course. But if you think of it as fun and creativity, and that you can be spontaneous within that realm, it's very different. Thank you for sharing that.
That's okay.
Look, Alan, I'm wondering, we've talked about injections quite casually, and I wonder if there's men out there watching this going, but there's a needle. Isn't this the most anxiety-provoking thing you can do?
It is. And sometimes I go, do I really want to do the needle? Do I really want to stick this in myself? And I go, well, if you want to have sex today, you're just going to have to do what a man's got to do, and that's keep the wife happy. But of course, there are other options. We've talking about Viagra, and there's also different pumps which are useful. And I've been using this off and on, but more to use to create a stretchiness. As we know, it's important to stretch. It's a muscle. You've got to stretch it. So sometimes I'll actually use this prior to injecting myself to just get some blood movement and to stretch Percy. And then obviously take it off. There's no ring. We're not attaching the ring. And then I'll go downstairs and inject myself. And I find that seems to work a lot quicker. And then I'll able to use the vibrator. So I use 3 approaches to it. And sometimes I may not use the pump as well, but I find if I use the pump, it just seems to create a quicker response as well. And of course, fantasising and all that sort of stuff. So you've just got to take whatever works for you. This works for me, it may not work for you out there. But if you don't experiment, you won't know what it works. And if it doesn't work the first time, that doesn't mean you just throw your hands up and go, it's all over, Red Rover. You've got to find out what works, and you have to experiment and mix and match. And sometimes you've talked about the silicone in masturbating in the shower. So that's
silicone lubricant.
Yeah, the silicone lubricant. It's important to use that. And again, it's the brain's important. You just can't stand there and go into automatic. You've got to use your brain, get this neuroplasticity, which is a bit of a buzzword at the moment, but it is important to turn the nerves on. That's turn yourself on and do that as part of your foreplay.
Yeah, and it sounds you found actually a system and a process, but you've made it clear it's really been a bit of trial and error for the center to find what works.
Yes.
And that's wonderful to hear from you, because what I find reading a lot of the clinical literature around penile rehab and sexual renegotiation after prostate surgery is often the trials, they give people sort of one thing to do, you know, let's see if just Viagra on its own works. Whereas in reality, this is what I hear from clients all the time, it's actually often cobbling together a few things that work for both people in the partnership.
Yes.
And that's what we've demonstrated like wonderfully in this video.
Indeed.
So thank you so much,
Thank
Alan
you.
and Fiona.
That's a pleasure.
And everybody watching, if you enjoyed this, please comment, subscribe to the channel, press that like button, and you can download the first chapter of their book in a link in the description box below.
Thank you.
Thank you.